Post, and as am I, a proud graduate of the University of Missouri School of Journalism. Welcome to you all and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Julie, let me start with you. The president told the New York Times recently that he thought Special Counsel Robert Mueller would be fair. And he didn't seem to express, given the opportunity, all of the hostility some Republicans in Congress in the late waning months of December expressed toward the special counsel, his staff, his motives. What does this tell us, if anything, about where the White House actually is on this and the never-ending question in Washington, where is the Russia investigation?
Well, for months, the president has been hearing from two different camps on Bob Mueller. He's been hearing from some of his outside advisors, the people who have been around him for years, who say that he needs to be tougher on Bob Mueller. That
needs a better legal team.
Needs a better legal team. He needs to be more aggressive in going after what a lot of these friends and advisors of the president see as the politically motivated investigation by Bob Mueller. But then there are the White House lawyers, people like Ty Cobb, John Dowd, who have been saying to the president that he actually would be in a stronger position if he let this investigation run its course. And so at least in that moment, that's where the president seemed to be. He seemed to be taking the advice of those lawyers. I think heading into 2018, the thing to watch is going to be how Trump reacts to the reality that this investigation is not going to be over quickly. Those same lawyers have been telling him that this is winding down. All evidence points to the contrary, that this is an investigation that is still robust, that is still pursuing new avenues, and how the president reacts, how fair he thinks Mueller is being when he realizes that this could consume a second year of his presidency, could really change the direction of this administration in 2018.
Rachel, the president said the investigation is not good for the country. It doesn't makes it look bad. Is it burdening Congress? Is it becoming something that Congress doesn't know what to do with or can't bring to conclusion?
Republicans feel it's certainly a distraction from their legislative agenda. Of course, they would rather be talking about tax reform than what's the latest turn in the Russia investigation screws. Look, the whole thing with the president saying, that the investigation is going to be fair, it's kind of interesting when you sort of compare it with what his allies on the Hill are doing in terms of trying to discredit the investigation.
Preemptively discredit it.
Right, before we see the conclusions. And just in the past week or so, we've seen, we've heard news about a sort of secret House Republican investigation led by Trump ally Devin Nunes, who leads the House Intelligence Committee panel. And this is basically a probe of whether there's corruption in the FBI. And they're also talking about, senior FBI officials and want to ask them about any contacts they have with journalists. So, Trump might be sitting back and saying, I'm going to, be neutral here. I'm going to let Mueller do his job. But he's letting, his allies on the Hill do his dirty work.
He's also setting framework in that same interview where he said, 16 times there was no collusion. He seems to be suggesting that he will be treated fairly, assuming there's a certain outcome. And I think one point that Julie made is really important, which is that in that same interview, Trump also acknowledged that he doesn't know when this investigation will end. And it's something where his own lawyers had told him Thanksgiving, then Christmas, then definitely by the end of the year. That does not seem to be happening, and the president seemed to acknowledge that.
And it's incredible that the party that has been built on law and order and has been supported by law enforcement and first responders in this country really for most of this century is now going after the preeminent law enforcement agency in this country. And I think one thing to remember is you've got thousands of FBI personnel all across the country. They will respond today to crimes far outside of Washington. And to be going after them in this way has a real risk for the Republican Party, I think, going into the midterms this year. You're going to need those types of people to turn out for Republican candidates. And if they're going after the FBI in this way, you wonder whether or not that affects their support.
And yet if some of those Republicans who've raised these concerns were sitting at this table, they would say, look, it's not the FBI we're going after. We're going after people who have text messages that are at least problematic.
Right.
In what they say about their political orientation and what it might mean for them as investigators. And you have an FBI process dealing with Hillary Clinton that was outside of what would be regarded as normal protocol. I'm not saying that. Lots of people who are experts in the law have looked at this and said, there's some questions that need to be answered here. Can you raise this in a way that gets to some of those answers without fighting the political risks you just suggested.
And that's going to be a really tricky balancing act for those Republicans who want to start this up on Capitol Hill in the coming year, for sure.
You might see a split, I would guess.
You are
we're already
seeing
starting
among
to-
Republicans on this.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
Lindsey Graham, just a few minutes ago in interviewing with you, said he wants Mueller to continue to do his job. I mean, watch people like him and compare him with Devin Nunes, who's going to be really aggressive on this in terms of saying that there is corruption and bias at the FBI. But there's a lot of Republicans on the Hill who are not comfortable with that. And so that split is just going to grow wider and wider.
Julie, you heard the rather lively conversation we had among our 4 members of Congress, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, about DACA, about the Dreamers, deferred adjudication for childhood arrivals. It seemed to me that that was just a preliminary round. I mean, that this is going to get very intense, and the politics of it are going to get white hot almost instantly.
Absolutely. This is going to be the big issue to watch on Capitol Hill heading into 2018 because it's so emotional and it's so personal for so many people, and because most lawmakers in both parties would like to have a solution to this problem. Republicans don't want to be the party that let 1 million young people who came to this country as children be deported. But they also are looking to the president for some guidance on how hard he's going to be on the marker he has laid down, which is, I will give you DACA if you give me a border wall. One thing I've heard from Democrats is some worry that they will let the perfect be the enemy of the good here. Some Democrats are open to the idea that you could give on border security, give on technology at the border, something that would allow the president to save face with his base, go forward and say, look at all of this that I got for border security, even if it's not a physical wall. But again, if you heard Debbie Dingell, she wants clean DACA. Yeah. That seems like that is going to be an impossible
Separating
position.
those issues entirely.
Separating those issues, that seems like an impossible position for Democrats.
And that, to me, Ed, seems like a near suicide mission for the White House if it were to go that route, because it would invite amnesty, rolling over, giving in, and abandoning the things that were central to your campaign message.
Let's remember on the calendar you have January 19th, which is when the next spending bill expires and when they want to come up with a solution to this problem. Otherwise, March 5th
the next semi-shutdown drama.
Right, exactly. And then March 5th is the deadline for DACA. Did you hear anyone present a specific proposal here this morning?
Or a timeline?
No,
that's even mildly rational.
They're nowhere near an agreement on this. And I think, as Julie was saying, the real breaking point here is going to be once they put down what the compromise is for DACA. Okay, we're going to save these kids. And they're not just kids.
And they're not all kids.
They're adults.
Many of them are adults.
Anywhere between 640,000 and 1.8 million people. Once they figure that out, okay, what are you going to get in return? Yeah. I'm less interested in what the Republican response to that will be than the Democratic response. But a lot of these congressmen from immigrant districts, LA, Chicago, New York, are going to go home. And if these people are told, you're getting your status, but we're also going to do all these other things, the backlash for Democrats could be quite severe.
Backlash is important, but I think the president has been all over the map on this. He talked earlier when he announced ending DACA that we could do border separately. We could do a border wall separately. Now he's talking about the wall again in this interview. It could
Not
be
just that, but chain migration.
Chain migration.
Other things.
Chain migration,
he's adding to the ledger.
Things like the visa diversity lottery. It's 50,000 a year for certain countries that don't have a lot of immigrants coming here. Things like that have been talked about being eliminated in the past. They've been in bills in the 2013 bill. These are not new ideas. Some of these could happen in this round. But I think the border wall is something that Democrats just look as important to them saying no on something like this as it is for Trump and his base to get some start on that.
And Rachel, we saw right before Congress left town, House members go into Chuck Schumer's office and sort of try to read him the riot act for not standing up on this issue.
Right.
I mean, these tensions are real right now.
Yeah, there's certainly a split not only with the Democrats about how much to demand in return for DACA, but also with the Republicans in terms of how much to demand for DACA, but the Democrats as well in terms of should they have held the line before Christmas and getting this fixed. Just to sort of illustrate how difficult this issue is, I was speaking with Mike Kaufman, who is this Republican from a swing state district in California, has a lot of immigrants and Dreamers in his own district, and he was telling me the week before Christmas, this center moderate group of Republicans and Democrats, they call themselves the problem solvers, and they get together and they try to do bipartisan solutions when everybody else is at each other's throats. They were supposed to unveil some sort of DACA agreement the last week before Christmas, and it came together, they had something, and it just ended up blowing up. It fell through, and this just shows that if these people who are moderate Democrats, moderate Republicans, cannot come together, sit in a room, and come up with a solution, how are Republican and Democratic leaders going to fix this?
Problem Solvers Caucus becomes Lump of Coal Caucus
Right before Christmas.
We'll be right back with our panel. Thanks for watching. Please join us when we come back.